All right, so what's the second one? The second one then is that indeed the proponents, as you would expect of intelligent design, say that intelligent design is a science, right? Proponents argue that the facts that justify an inference to an intelligent designer, and indeed the very inference itself, are properly construed as being within the domain of science. And so obviously the intelligent design folks want to suggest that intelligence design is a science. So that's the second one. And then
Which in the 90s, like that was the hot button issue of whether or not it was science. And it seemed like all the court cases that came about almost sidestepped it and was like, well, you're just trying to sneak religion into it. Separation church and state denied.
yeah,
There, we won.
and he's going to suggest here later on in the chapter that you don't necessarily have to come from a religious perspective in order to hold an intelligent design position. So we'll see that as we go. All right, so that was the second one. Intelligent design is a science. And then thirdly, methodological naturalism should be rejected. He says proponents of intelligent design reject methodological naturalism. Roughly, it's the idea that while doing science, scientists must limit themselves to strictly naturalistic, materialistic explanations, right? So you only talk about naturalistic, materialistic explanations when doing science. And the intelligent design folks obviously reject that particular methodology, I guess.
Right. Again, you come across the log cabin in the woods. Well, there's wood here and wood in this house. To talk about anything of a person with an axe means that you're trying to sneak your log cabin maker extremism into the education of children. And therefore, you have to just assume they all fell within the structure around a stone masonry, and that's the end of it. So that's the only explanation that you get.
No intelligence.
Right, exactly. Okay, theistic evolutionists are theists, then, who believe that when it comes to scientifically detectable empirical evidence, the process by which evolution occurred are blind, purposeless, and naturalistic process with no goal-directed activity or supernatural intervention. So, that's the macro on up idea. So, we call, I think, even intelligent design people, creationists, all support the idea of microevolution, or as we just like to call it, change in species. And you have your speciation from there. And usually it's a breakdown of information. You don't add information to it. No matter how many kisses the frog gets, it will never turn into a prince. And no matter how much time you mix in there as well, it will never do that as well. So this kind of splits the baby, to use a biblical term here, by allowing for kind of God to jumpstart the process maybe a little bit down the way. If you're bowling and you're young, you have the gutter bumpers, and so God's the gutter bumpers that is kind of keeping life within the scope of the lane, so that it will hit the
So
pins.
theistic evolutionists reduce God to gutter.
That's right.
Hey, got it.
Yep. When life is in the gutter, then you need God. So there you go. So that's the definition. But it's some fairly unclear sense. God guided the process here for theistic evolutionists, but that is involvement by God is not detectable. And so, again, that's the big difference between intelligent design and theistic evolutionists. The physical universe, the world of atoms, subatomic particles, and things made of atoms, is the proper object of scientific study, and naturalism is the proper method of pursuing that study. And so you kind of put your Bible down, you leave that for Sunday, and you pick up your physics books that doesn't have any big G's in there, and then that's the only way that you can pursue the study of science.
Yeah. And he makes a distinction here between methodological naturalism and philosophical naturalism with regard to theistic evolutionists. And he says that the theistic evolutionist doesn't hold to philosophical naturalism, which is a metaphysical position, right? That only the physical world exists. But they do hold to methodological naturalism, which says that we should only explain by using the various physical processes. So that's a distinction there that he makes. All right, so that's theistic evolution. And so there's a distinction between intelligent design and theistic evolution. And now he wants to talk about the revival of methodological naturalism. And he says, though methodological naturalism is nothing new, it has experienced something of a revival, he suggests, in recent years. One Christian scholar, Paul de Vries, announced that the goal of natural science is to place events in the explanatory context of physical principles. and laws and fields and that sort of thing. So only the physical that you can talk about, right? And thus the goal of natural science is to explain contingent natural phenomena strictly in terms of other contingent natural phenomena, right? Why did the pool, the ball, the cue ball hit the other ball? And why did the other ball react the way it did? Well, you only have physical processes that are involved. And so those are the only thing that you need to explain. Never mind that Fred, hit the ball himself, right? With the stick, right? With the cue stick. You can't allow that, right?
Right.
You might be able to get the stick in there, but not Fred.
You get the big bang, but no banger.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so the goal of natural science, he says, to explain contingent natural phenomena strictly in terms of their contingent natural phenomena, and any appeal to personal causes and actions of human or supernatural agents is, as Ben Stein says, not allowed.
That's right.
No intelligence allowed. So
That's
there
right.
it is, right? That's the revival of methodological naturalism.
So De Vries goes on to say then a God hypothesis is both unnecessary and out of place within naturalistic scientific explanations. So this is, you're sticking too much into it. It's not necessary, and get it out of there. The idea that adding more complexities into a theory kind of hurts your theory more. And so De Vries is saying it's not necessary. It's out of place, and we just need to stick with the naturalistic processes here. A scientist may be able to measure the effects of an action of an agent, for example, the velocity of a ball thrown by a pitcher, but the free will mental act of the pitcher himself is outside the domain of physical science. Well, and again, scientism says here that we could never even constitute anything about a free will mental act because, unless you're just talking about the fluctuations of chemicals that make them throw a curveball rather than a knuckleball, that's the only thing that can happen within the scope of scientism science. Well, in this case, methodological naturalism would require that science find a purely physical cause for the ball's velocity. It was caused by physical states in the brain according to the physical laws. So again, the firing of chemicals, the fizzing of their, how much sleep you got the night before, the stress levels, but no cause for those stresses, kids waking up in the middle of the night or anything like that. You can only talk about those naturalistic processes.
Right. All right. So there it is.